Hello.
Hello, Andre.
Hi, Sunny. This is the 10th time we're trying to record this. This is our 10th attempt at giving you guys the entertainment that you need and crave. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Also, speaking of, the entertainment people crave, shout out to listeners in Thailand.
Oh my god.
Andre sent me
Not the listeners in Thailand.
sent me this stat that apparently, we've got some enthusiastic fans in Thailand. So,
We do. We are apparently number 96 in society, and I think of society and culture in the Thailand podcast rankings, I guess. And we're so shook. I'd like to thank my mom. No, it's like
really, it's
such
so
a
cool.
Random thing.
Yeah.
But it is kind of cool.
Maybe we should do
like
Thai urban mythology or something.
Dude, maybe we should just learn. Fuck it. We should just speak Thai. Hi, welcome to.
Have someone translate one of our descriptions to Thai for an extra treat episode.
Oh my god. But yeah, no, that was really cool to learn. So thank you to our Thai fans. Also, I wanted to talk about not also, but just completely separate topic. I wanted to talk about something that I saw on the news today, which is just insane. Which is that Texas wants the Supreme Court to throw out Biden's victory, and I just kind of made me laugh when I read that headline because hi, welcome to Politi Talk, by the way. Because I just picture the whole of just the state of Texas being like no, and just crossing their arms across their chest. I mean, I don't know. I have no comment. I just had that to say. So
I mean, you know what they say. Texas is the heart of what the Confederacy would have been, I guess. So I feel like there's a lot of southern
Yep.
So
you know what they say. Texas is Texas is what Reading is to California. Texas is to the United States.
Oh my god.
Wow, I really tried there. Anyway, so apparently the way you say scary talk in Thai is way too fucking long. It is Kar Put Kui Ti Na Klao. So thank you, everyone.
Oh, Andre.
Just bringing that back. And I'm sure I did great and did not butcher that. So don't come for me. Shut up.
Oh
now,
god.
What's next?
No, I feel so bad. Genuinely, thank you. I don't want to. There's some due respect here, but yeah.
Yes. So, something else I want to talk about. Super interesting. These are just Andre's random notes he wants to make on his podcast because no one else wants to listen to him, and so he has to let that out somehow. Hi, you guys are all the outlets, so listen up. I went on Ancestry.com recently because I'm really into family trees, and I was working on mine on a different website, but it wasn't very good, so I decided to transfer that info over to Ancestry, which has a lot more records. Apparently, the whole fucking world, billions of records. God, it's kind of scary how much this company can amass as far as just shit they own, records of people, information. It's kind of scary, but also super convenient. I ended up finding relatives from the 1600s in there. It's insane.
Whoa.
Dude. I input my nuclear family and grandparents, uncles and aunts. I asked my grandparents for some info, to see if they could remember their grandparents, but that's as far back as I was able to go with them. And then the website kind of took it from there and was like, hey, because of these birth records and marriage records and baptism records or whatever, because hashtag Mexicans are Catholic, they were able to find generations back all the way down to the 1680s. That's insane.
Yeah.
Dude, I feel like a white person. You know why people when they're my ancestors came on the Mayflower or whatever. That's how I feel. I am just really shook that the website has all these records on my ancestors, because I wouldn't even think those things would keep, but apparently they did. And I just
yeah, no, that's insane. What did you learn? Like, who were your ancestors? What did
Yeah,
they
I
do?
mean, apparently a lot of my ancestors were born in Jalisco. A shit ton of them, almost all of them. It's crazy how like people really stayed like where they lived for their whole lives, and then so did their children, right?
Yeah,
Before like modern transportation.
totally.
Like that's basically like a lot of the line from the 1680s up to like the early 1900s, and I mean, I learned that one of my great grandparents, I guess, lived to be like 35. Like that's it. And like they would literally have
Whoa.
children and then like die at 35. And I'm like, oh my God. Um, yeah, also the women, they'd be like 15 when they got married. So about your age. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy stuff. But really cool to just like even just have the names of these people, you know? So
Yeah, no, totally. And it makes you realize, like, you really could have not happened, you know? It would have just
I
taken one tiny, you know?
it really do be like that, Sunny. Thank you. No,
Anytime.
but I mean, but you have a point. I guess it just kind of puts things in perspective. This is what it made me. This is one thing that it did make me feel. It made me feel like a long time ago wasn't actually that long ago. Like that's what it made me feel like.
Mm,
These people from the 1600s, they have like regular ass names, right? That are still used in like Mexico today. And so
yeah.
I'm like, wow, like I could totally relate to a person with that name. I mean, probably not because they probably had to like go to the well to get water every day, but I like they sound so trivial, but like in a good way, you know? Like
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
it makes it feel like present, not like distant past.
Exactly.
So
Totally. That is
I
so
totally recommend you
cool.
do that, and I recommend all of our listeners go on ancestry.com and yeah.
And this episode sponsored by um
Yeah.
no no. Well, here's how we know it's not sponsored because I did 23andMe, which is the competitor. So,
Mm.
but actually I had a really funny experience with that. Here's what happened, Andre. So, I am half Korean, spoiler for our listeners, on my
Oh, I
dad's
didn't
side.
know.
And so I took this 23andMe test, and I was like not expecting very much, but I was like, may as well kind of test out and test the waters, you know. So I took it, and I got that I was 37% Korean, and then like 11% Japanese on that side. Yeah, so it was like, oh, you have a Japanese great grandparent. And I was like, oh my god, that's insane. Like, that means one of my dad's grandparents was Japanese. Like, he never told me. Is it a family secret? Should I even bring this up? Does he know? Da da da. And like went through this whole identity crisis. Well, not a whole, but the other thing is that I like speak conversational Japanese because I studied abroad there. So it was also like, whoa, now I speak a language that feels more relevant. Da da da. I logged back on maybe a month ago to check my results because someone had asked about it and I forgot the specifics. And they edited it, Andre. It turns out I am not
What?
11% Japanese. I'm just 50% Korean. And they made a
Oh.
mistake. It's just insane because I was like, whoa. I was like mind blown by this tiny thing. And it just turned
Oh,
out to
that
not be true.
sucks.
I mean, it's
Wait, but
also
like
funny. Hmm?
who edits that? I'm sorry. Who edits that?
Who what?
Who edits that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that they probably got more info, like more people's genes, and realized, like, oh fuck, we thought that that was Japanese, but we're actually seeing that that's like something that Korean people have or whatever.
That's crazy. I think 23andMe is a little bit different because I know that Ancestry does offer like the DNA kits, but from what I see, the only way they've provided me with information about my potential ancestors is by matching birth, marriage, and other stuff records. And
Mm.
so that sounds different. But that's really cool though. Yours actually sounds cooler.
It did it first. But it was cool, and I got to see that yeah, I had been told that my ancestors on the Korean side spent a lot of, or were mostly from Jeju Island, and the 23andMe confirmed mostly from Jeju Island and from Seoul, the capital. So,
Wow.
pretty
Well, I'm
cool.
sorry, Sunny. Man, Sunny really said, "Oh, 난 그냥 한국인이야," which means, "Oh, I'm just Korean." So I'm sorry. Sorry for getting your hopes up. You should definitely sue that website. So,
I'm gonna sue you for speaking that Korean first.
Now, last random ass thing I want to talk about before we get to the actual episode is I think I'm gonna get the new M1 MacBook Air.
Oh.
Yes. Uh-huh. I think it's gonna be my last step towards complete skinny bimboification. Just because, you wanna be a hot blonde skinny girl, you gotta do Apple. You gotta do Apple.
You gotta have
You
a
just got
skinny
to.
computer.
You gotta have you gotta have a skinny computer. You can only just be skinny yourself and then have a chunk laptop, right?
Exactly.
And number two, it's also just kind of the social status thing. So I'm definitely falling for that and just giving into. No, but for real, I've read a lot about these computers, the new ones that Apple just released with their own M1 chip. So they really said, Intel, we're sorry, girl, we gotta cut ties, and they did. They made their own chip, and apparently these computers are like super amazing. Spoiler alert, Andres a little bit of a nerd, just a teeny bit, because of the whole bimbo thing, but still a bit. And I'm really into this. I'm really into this stuff. I'm really into tech, even though I don't purchase nearly as much of it as I research because #poor. But it is really interesting, and apparently the fact that with these laptops, Apple has become the first company to make a computer for which it created the software, hardware, and operating system and the processor chip. It makes these computers like super synergized and like super efficient, right? Because like the transistors within these computers don't have to communicate like, oh, if a chip is from one company, it doesn't then have to like first translate itself in order to communicate to the software that was made by another company. And that's how most PCs are, and actually all computers including Apple MacBooks are until now. And that's pretty revolutionary. Like you see every tech reviewer YouTuber talking about, oh my god, like this computer, like oh my god. And so I don't know, I'm kind of falling for it.
Wait, that's so cool, Andre. I had no idea you were into this stuff.
Yeah, no, I totally am. Totally am. I'm actually very much into this stuff. Just last October, September. So like a couple months ago, I actually my old laptop wasn't great, and I wanted to make sure recording this podcast just went as smoothly as possible. And so I got a new laptop, and then guess what? This new thing released like a couple of months later. So I should have just waited. Like, granted, the hope here is that my new laptop, I can sell it and, recoup some of that. But yeah, I'm like really falling for this MacBook. It would also be my first MacBook because I really like iPhones, but I've never been in love with MacBooks, or rather they're really good but never good enough to justify me switching to a different operating system that I'm not used to. And so but the fact that these computers apparently like operate at the speed of light and can dance and give you ass massages, like apparently is
totally a lap dance on the side.
Exactly. And so I'm falling for it. I think that kind of justifies me switching over if they really are that good, especially for the price that they are. And so I'm gonna do it. And to everyone saying, because I'm sure someone's gonna say, oh, you'd be better off waiting till the second generation of these products comes out. Yes, probably, because bugs and whatnot and first gen products are always buggy. But if I were to do that, the computer that I'm trying to sell to recoup some of the cost would likely lose value in a year. Will definitely lose value in a year. And so, you know what I mean? Smart money things. Anyway, God, I'm so fucking boring when I want to be, aren't I?
No, honestly, get it. I love this. I like fully stand. You've convinced me. You're like an Apple salesman right now. I'm gonna look it up after this.
No, I'm so sorry. The bimbo mask is falling off. The entertainers, the listeners are leaving. Everyone's shutting off there.
They say, if Andre's not dumb, I don't want it.
We don't want it. Now, I can hear it right now. That's the sound of phones being turned off, apps closing, computers going to sleep. No, we gotta bring back the energy. I am so sorry. I'm a dumb bimbo. Now let's get ready to talk about unopened mystery doors. So, yes. Hi all, welcome to Scary Talk episode 87. Today we're talking about
Ooh.
unopened doors.
Mhm.
This is actually a listener requested topic, and thank you very much whoever requested it, which I do not remember who it was because too many DMs, but that's a good problem to have. But listener requested topic, I thought it was really interesting, and so Sunny and I went into this. We are talking about doors that have not or should not be opened. It's kind of self-explanatory. I've talked too much. Sunny, I'll let you take the lead.
Okay. Yeah, just reiterating the thank you, because I would have never thought of this as a topic, but looking into it, it was really cool and fun to look at. So I know Andre said it was self-explanatory, but for us actual bimbos, certified bimbos, um, I mean, unopened doors, what does that even mean? A lot of these are like vaults or tombs that haven't been opened, where it's like, oh, what's that? Or things that should not be opened, like Andre mentioned. So, oh, this hazardous waste has been sealed because we don't want anyone to come across it and get,
You
radioactive
know,
poisoning.
that nuclear active.
Oh, God. Yeah, my doctor's gonna be like, have you been sexually active? And I'll say no, but nuclearly?
Nuclear active.
um, but yes, so it's just a really cool topic, and I'll start us off with a really cool one. A lot of these have history to them too, so I discovered a lot more about Indian and Chinese history than I was expecting while doing this research. So, one unopened door is contained in Kerala, India, which is a state in India, and it's the Padmanabhaswamy Temple. So, this is a temple that is one of the 108 principal, it's called Divya Desam, and I think it means holy temple or holy abodes in India under Vaishnavism, which is basically the biggest section of Hinduism. About 67% of people who identify as Hindu identify as specifically Vaishnava Hindu. And so this is one of the 108 principal temples, and it is actually recorded as being the most wealthy temple to be recorded from the riches and treasure that's already been found there. So in terms of more background on the temple, it was active from about the 10th to the 16th century, and essentially they found that it had, let's see, A, B, C, D, E, F, I have to count. There were six sort of vaults that they found, and they were like, oh, let's open these up and check out what's inside. But one vault, let's see, A, B, C, D, yeah, vault B remained unopened. So essentially they opened all the other vaults, they found a ton of riches, essentially coming out to, I think, around $20 billion. And
wow.
yeah, I mean, I could list out some of the stuff that they found. They found pure gold chains, gold sheath, necklaces, diadems, diamonds, rubies, sapphires, emeralds. You can think of it, it was here. This was a really wealthy central temple for a long time, and these riches had been held there for a long, long time. Yeah, so they found that the market price came out to about $17 billion. And the thing is, there's still this one unopened vault. So in terms of history around too, this is a big temple under the Mughal Empire, and this is what I thought was so cool about researching this is, so the Mughal Empire was an empire that ruled over a lot of South Asia, 16, 17, beginning of 1800s, and then in the 1800s, Britain had taken India as a colony, and that kind of broke down the Mughal Empire, and so there was this sort of transfer of power at that time. But the Mughal Empire was essentially like the U.S. of the 1700s, 1800s in terms of, or at what the U.S. used to be in terms of being a huge manufacturing power, huge GDP, center of wealth, which kind of explains why this temple was so central and had insane riches. So the question, of course, is why hasn't Vault B been opened? And the answer isn't really clear. There's a lot of different theories as to why it hasn't been opened, and there's actually a lot of lawsuits around this because the government, the current Indian government, has trying to seize this huge amount of wealth. And then there's this royal family that that I think originally owned or would have had claim to the temple, and there's a lot of auditing going on. It's actually a kind of crazy back and forth. But in terms of reasons why no one has opened Vault B, there are a lot of different theories. So there's one theory that it's cursed, and this is backed up by the fact that the first ruling by the Supreme Court to assess the wealth of the temple came after an advocate named Sundar Rajan had filed a writ petition. Sundar Rajan passed away in July 2011, suddenly and unexpectedly, and many believe that it was divine backlash for not properly taking precautions about opening the vault. There's also a snake god theory. So the vault has cobras on the door. So there's some theories that these engravings that resemble a large cobra represent the place of recline of the temple deity, who is Lord Vishnu, and how the door is protected by the snake god and can only be opened if you chant a certain mantra that no one knows.
That reminds me so much of Chamber of Secrets.
Oh, wait, that's so true. Whoa. We found J.K. Rowling's true inspo.
Yeah, dude. Well, Sunny really said, so that's cool.
That was a really spot-on imitation act. That was the best other language speaking I've heard you do today.
I'm the language master. I'm like, did you hear my tie? Hello. That's interesting. Okay, continue.
Yeah. And so basically there's a lot of theories that if they open it the wrong way or if they force it open, there will be a curse or a catastrophe. Along those same lines, there's a theory around the ocean. So about a century ago, because there was severe famine, trying to access the wealth of the vault, officials had tried to break open the chamber, but they heard what sounded like rushing water. So the story is that, according to them, the vault might be connected to the Arabian Sea, and if it were opened, the sea would flood the entire city. That is also something you'd see in a Nicolas Cage movie of like an insane booby trap. You know what I mean? National Treasure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you start to open the door and you can hear the rushing from the other side, and then you just like jump away barely in time, and suddenly the water just comes like crashing out, and there's like a whole thing that you have to deal with.
I love that shit, by the way. That's another genre. Listen, Resident Evil is where my heart is. Like, shitty action horror, but like jovial adventure is kind of like my second favorite. Like Indiana Jones, National Treasure, like that kind of shit.
Ooh,
I just love it so much.
I did not know that. Those are fun. Yeah. I will say one of my favorite Harry Potter. It all comes back to Harry Potter. One of my favorite, which Britain colonized India, whole connection. But one of my favorite Harry Potter things was when they had to. Oh God, was this in the first? I think it might have been the very first movie where they have like a series of tasks that they have to get through. It's the same idea, except a little bit of a darker turn. But
yeah, like when they have to play the whole body chess, like
exactly,
chessboard,
and then like the key that's being flown on like the little things. It's I really enjoyed that. But yeah, so these are some of the theories. There's also, of course, so there are different theories about which god might be protecting it and what kind of curse there might be. But I mean, based on how these audits go, they might be forced to open it no matter what. So we'll see. But it's interesting too how you get into the politics of this stuff when you have a temple containing that much wealth, and whether the state has the right to claim that. But I don't know. Mm-hmm. I just think that's insanely cool, and the history behind it is really cool too. Makes me want to learn more too about like Hindu religion and the history of that in India, because I mean India is the also the origin of Buddhism, so it's a really like religiously rich country.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, so
wow.
So that is the Padmanabhaswamy Temple Vault B unopened.
Well, I have definitely put on my bucket list, as you were speaking, to visit that temple, open Vault B, get into a whole Indiana Jones situation, and then report back to you ASAP. So I will let you know what happens.
And that's a Harry Potter situation too, trying to like grab the wealth before The booby traps
Oh,
overtake
and
you?
that's on T. You know it. Also, flights are incredibly cheap right now because COVID, so flying to India will be no problemo for me. So, like I said, report back. I will do. Now, thank you, by the way, for that. That was really interesting.
Mm.
I would like to talk to you about. This isn't really. Well, it's not spooky, but it is scary. Hear me out. So, there's this place called the Unopened Nuclear Fuel Repository. This place is in Finland, in the west coast of Finland, and it is basically this huge fucking underground building that is being built right now, and it's expected to be operational in 3 years. And it is supposed to, well, yeah, it is gonna hold like tens of thousands of tons of radioactive waste in these like canister barrels, just like inside this cave looking underground building. And it is that's what it is. Okay,
Okay, I
that's what
have
it
the
is.
visual.
And yeah, and that's great. Except when it's not, and there's a problem. Like I said, this place is being built, and the expectation is, well, first, the necessity for this is that nuclear waste is obviously made and needs to be stored somewhere. It's like, okay, storing it underground, definitely not a new idea. And storing it underground in a secret location instead of just burying it straight into the dirt is an even better idea. That's great. However, it's the fact that they're storing so much of it in one place that is concerning people, and this is why I wanted to cover this, because it completely triggered my Resident Evil like memory. Like, hello, they are storing so many, like tens of thousands of tons of this stuff in one place, or at least they will be storing it in 3 years' time. That 3 years time, in 3 years' time they'll start, by the way, and then they're expecting to fill up that whole space in just 100 years, by the way. So in 21, 23, I guess they'll be like closing this vault and just and
Just
then
letting it
pouring
ride?
concrete. Yeah, basically. I mean, that's the thing. No, you can let radioactive waste canisters rot, because that defeats the whole purpose of keeping this stuff contained until its half-life passes and is no longer so dangerous, right? So because of this, they're actually building these canisters with like a really strong form of some copper alloy, and that's, again, this is because the point of storing this in these things is to not have it rot, so these things have to be very strong and durable. And likewise, the building that they're going to be storing all this stuff in is built underground so that the elements don't affect it, or at least not as much. And that's great and all, whatever, but were there to be a leak in this place, like, boy oh boy.
Yeah.
Right, so
Yeah.
and the danger here is that the possibility of a leak only increases like the longer that you have to store this stuff, obviously. And since the plan is to store this for 100,000 years, because that's how long the uranium that they're
Unreal.
storing takes to lose its half-life,
Yeah.
that's a lot of opportunity for something to happen, right? I understand that the intent is just to have these canisters sit there for 100,000 years, but I mean, shit happens, and so I don't love this. However, like I said, it's probably the best, most secure way to store radioactive waste, but like it's still not good, and so maybe the problem is just the waste to begin with, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's switch to clean energy.
Yeah. I just want, just stick it in a rocket, launch that shit into space. Let some aliens deal with it.
I think that we could do that and like try to launch it into the sun, and like that's the repercussions of that would probably not reach us. Like it will be fine, but like I think we'd have to get that far to begin with, and I don't know that we can. Why haven't we done that? I'm super confused.
I don't think we've gotten like machines to Mars, but the sun I feel like is probably maybe further.
No. But we've gotten the Hubble telescope outside of the solar system, so we obviously can send stuff into the sun. It's just probably super expensive and not at all practical.
Yeah. They're like, do we spend $1 billion launching this radioactive
Yeah.
waste out there, or dig big hole?
Right. They really said dig big hole because it would also be a one-time use machine, and if there are $1 billion to make, I think yeah. So
No, totally. Well, and I don't know about you, but I read Voices from Chernobyl, which also came out as like some short doc thing. Um, and it's sometimes when they say fact is stranger than fiction, Chernobyl is what they're talking about. Some of the stuff is just unbelievably gruesome and sad. Um,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
yeah, oh my gosh, I could literally just rant about that book. It's actually I'm a really big fan of it. But all that to say, yeah, radioactivity is really scary. You can't fuck with that at all.
Yeah, so like I said, not necessarily I guess spooky in the paranormal realm, but I mean I guess neither was yours, but definitely scary and very very interesting. And I know what you mean about Chernobyl. Like when you say the word Chernobyl, to me what comes to mind are just a bunch of pictures that I saw when I was 10 that I definitely shouldn't have been seeing.
Mm.
And they are really gruesome, just like the way your skin, peels and boils and all this terrible shit. And the fact that obviously the people that were affected by this in Chernobyl, they didn't see this coming, didn't deserve this.
Yeah, and their
And
government was super dishonest to them about how bad it was, you know? It was just
exactly.
a terrible situation, yeah?
Yeah, because they were more concerned with saving face. But, that's a whole other topic. But, yes, definitely, fact is very often stranger than fiction. Even in the context of Chernobyl, like the elephant's foot. Have you heard of that? Hello. Have you?
I haven't. The elephant's foot?
Yeah, this is just something that I know, like a factoid of my memory. Like the elephant's foot is this basically no, guess what it is. I think that's more fun. Guess what the elephant's foot in Chernobyl is.
Is it some kind of terrible thing that happens to people's feet?
It is not. It is not something that happens to people.
Okay, then I would guess that something terrible happened to an elephant's foot. Got it. I don't know, am I a bimbo? That's...
You're not a bimbo because that would have been my guess. No, apparently, the elephant's foot is this huge, elephant foot-sized mound of radioactive pure waste that was found on the floor of a basement in the Chernobyl factory where the meltdown took place. And basically, because this stuff melts shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think of hydrochloric acid. This stuff just is hot and terrible and gross, and it melts shit. This stuff had apparently this big ass mound of shit had traveled from the main floor where the meltdown took place all the way down to a number of levels, all the way down to this basement, right, where it couldn't penetrate the ground any further. And that's my understanding, at least. And when people went to, I don't know, clean Chernobyl or whatever, the team that took care of that, they found this thing in the basement. I'll send you a picture. It literally looks like, because basically all this slime traveled all the way to underground, and then it just sat in that basement. It looks like an elephant's foot just sitting there, and now it's rock and hardened.
Ooh.
And but this elephant's foot is intensely radioactive and super concentrated.
Yeah.
And they weren't actually able to remove that, as far as I understand, because you can't, and so it's still there.
No, totally, yeah. Well, reading the stories about cleanup too, it was people would know. They would sign up for, because the closer you go to the center, the more radioactive it is. So when you're signing up to clean the center, you'll sign up to just go in there and clean it for 5 minutes and come out, and you're paid $10,000 because that's probably your life on the line, crazy
Yeah.
stories. And yeah. Yeah, there's yeah.
So that was the Onkalo Spent Nuclear Fuel Repository in Finland. Everyone go visit. The tours were really fun, and you get to see a couple of barrels already put in there. So
Yeah.
go and make your mark. Take a
Just
visit.
don't get nuclearly activated. Heart.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, just I'm looking at this photo of the elephant's foot. It is... Why is it so bright, too? Whoa.
Okay, so describe. Okay, so yeah, so I sent Sunny a picture, and what you're looking at is the room that it is in, still presently in, mind you, and then someone in the background doing something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, So the reason, and then there's like weird light coils all around the picture, and also the foot is very bright. This is in the camera's flash. This is just like a regular camera trying to take a picture. But as you can guess, the reason it comes off like this, especially the guy has these weird like electric looking coils of light around his body, the guy in the picture, is because obviously this radioactivity fucks with the camera. And that's just how intense it is. That this person
Whoa.
just tried to pop in and out and take a picture, and this camera was already fucked.
This almost
So,
looks like a paranormal photo. Like it's pretty spooky.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's very few pictures of the elephant's foot. And that this is why. Just crazy shit. Anyway,
Totally,
what else you
totally.
got?
Totally. So I had some stuff on the Taj Mahal too, but I think maybe I'll save that because we've spent some time discussing Indian history, and
Let India rest, girl.
we'll be back for you, India. We'll be back. Um, but actually, the other one is about the tomb with the terracotta warriors. I don't know about you all, but if you ever watched Wendy Wu, Homecoming Warrior, iconic film, and she has to fight like cursed terracotta warriors, if you remember.
I thought you were gonna mention the Mummy 3, the Tomb of the Emperor, Dragon Emperor,
Oh,
with
dang.
Jet Li. Yeah, that was good. But yeah, Wendy Wu, iconic.
It definitely couldn't compare to Wendy Wu. No, but you know what I didn't realize? So the terracotta statues were discovered in 1974.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so recent.
Yeah, that's like 46 years ago. So it just amazes me how quickly it's entered, like,
Dude, that's as old as I am. That's crazy. Like,
yeah. Well, the thing is, they're 2,200 years old.
which is closer to how I am on the inside. But yeah, that's crazy.
No, exactly. I'm blown away by that too. Also, because I feel like discussion of them and like knowledge of them is so common, and you wouldn't expect that for something that's relatively new, especially for an archaeological discovery that's relatively new, because you know, it's just like, oh, you found this new old thing. But yeah, it's really cool. So in 1974, it was five brothers who were farmers found essentially a massive underground mausoleum, and it's cool how many of these sealed away, unopened doors have to do with like death, tombs, kind of like just sealing in wealth and the history of a person who's now passed away. But they found the underground mausoleum of actually the first empire of the Qin dynasty. Now, okay, Qin dynasty, to be clear, is spelled Qin, so I could call it Qin dynasty, Qin or Qin. It's really actually neither of them is the correct pronunciation, and I cannot get the pronunciation correct.
What? No, you gotta give it to me, Sunny. If you have it there, you gotta read it and give me your best.
No, I think to my ear, Qin sounds closer, so I'm tempted to say like Qin dynasty. It's a different sound though. So
Well, you know, I do have a wireless charger for my phone, and it is a Qi certified charger, and it is spelled QI. So, hello, knowledge teams. Yeah.
yep. And so now you've gotten a Chinese lesson today too, everyone.
Yeah.
But yes, so they found the mausoleum of the first Qin Empire, and this is a huge historical thing because this guy was alive at about 200 BC, right? So our man Jesus Christ was but a twinkle in Mary's great grandmother's eye, and
Wow.
yeah, and this guy was the first, or one of the first in recorded history to unite China. He was part of the Qin dynasty, which was one territory of China, essentially, and he expanded power and managed to unite China, although a few years after his death, that sort of fell apart for a while. So...
Wait, before you continue, can I just say for a second, can you imagine being Jesus Christ? Like, man, the pressure? Like, not me. Anyway.
Well, I don't know, though. I feel like if it's anything like Trump's followers, you could probably screw up and people will still just see what they want to see.
I guess so. Isn't that right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious though. I would love to see whether Jesus felt like pressured or whether he reveled in it.
Wow, you're the queen of subtle shades, Sunny. You keep that up. Good for you.
Why did you subtly shade me for subtle shade?
No. That was a subtle praise for subtle shade. Don't get it wrong. And that's tea.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, yes, and the name of this emperor was Qin Shi Huang, and he lived to only 39. So one really cool thing about this guy, beyond the whole unifying China thing, is that he had a huge interest in magic and alchemy, and he wanted to find an elixir of immortality. Once again, Harry Potter, Philosopher's Stone. This is actually crazy. I hadn't thought about that comparison. But he wanted to find immortality. So essentially he had taken a lot of different expeditions. He went to what's called the islands in the Eastern Sea, possibly Japan, in 219 BC. And he repeatedly summoned magicians to court. Basically, he was doing all this bullshit, and the Confucian scholars, who were, very influential in the scholarly realm, were like, hey, dude, that's kind of BS, and we're gonna go ahead and say that's not cool. And so he executed 460 of them for their opposition to his effort. And it actually is really just so historical. So the controversy here between him and the Confucian scholars eventually culminated in a burning of books at 213 BC. So Li Shi, the emperor, decided that all books not dealing with agriculture, medicine, or prognostication were burned, except historical records of Qin and books in the imperial library. So he burned tons of the Confucian classics that are still like central texts to like Confucian tradition. So they actually, in about 200 AD, which is 400 years around after the time he ruled and died, the empire at that time had to do a restoration, essentially, and a lot of Confucian scholars had like memorized the text and just passed down orally the text to one another. Just totally.
Wait, that's amazing. Can I just say, don't you miss the pre-internet era sometimes? Like, the simple times where if you wanted to get rid of information, or dissidents for that matter, you could either just kill people or burn texts, and there's no internet to keep that forever. You put something on the internet one day and it's there forever, and that's stressful. If you could just burn things and then have them not exist anymore. Hello, convenience.
I mean, who's to say that's not still China's philosophy?
Wow, you really got me there. I mean, it is. I mean, listen, no, it is. Actually, they figured out how to do it even with the internet. Man, that Chinese firewall, the Great Chinese Firewall, that is something to be in awe of. Like their censorship program, boy oh boy. So I take it back. We can still do that today. I feel prosperous now. Thank you.
And they say that big government can't be efficient.
Tell me about it, right?
No, totally. This history behind this is so cool. But so when this emperor died, he was buried in what was to date the most opulent tomb complex ever made. It was supposedly a city-sized collection of underground caverns containing anything he'd want to bring with him to the afterlife. So similar idea with the ancient Egyptians, bringing his loved ones. And for this guy, he said, well, don't bury me with my actual soldiers. What we'll do is bury me with replicas. And that's why they have found 2,000, but estimate that there's around 8,000 terracotta soldiers to be excavated.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of reasons actually why they haven't fully opened this tomb complex. One is that on his search for immortality, this guy took a lot of mercury, which might have killed him young because he died at 39. So the irony is peak. But he took a lot of mercury
That has the
pills.
same energy as when Elizabethan ladies would wear makeup powder with lead in it.
Yes. Same energy.
And then they would get blisters and wonder why that was happening, and then try to cover it up with more powder. Not even kidding.
No, exactly. Yeah. Oh God, I'll take one for toxic cycles. Thank you. Yeah, it's like, oh my God, I'm feeling really sick. Better take more mercury. So the legend around his tomb is that he was actually buried with rivers of mercury around him. And samples of the soil around the tomb have confirmed they're very high in mercury. So there's concerns about excavating because it could contaminate the farmland around and like other areas. There's also concerns around excavation techniques, which was really interesting to read about. Essentially, like a lot of the excavation that happened in 1930s, 1950s era, like a lot of tombs were being found, and apparently a lot of it was very damaging to the artifacts that they found compared to our methods now because we've improved so much. And so a lot of things that have just degraded in quality a lot, or are now, maybe you have some text that hasn't maintained its clarity. Now you'd have methods to maintain those artifacts better and have a more just a better excavation process to keep everything in a good state. So the idea is that with the terracotta warriors, even when they would first dig them up, the pigment would immediately come off. But now they have a method where when they dig them up, they can help preserve the paint on it. So if they wait longer to excavate this tomb, maybe when they do find what's inside, they'll be better able to preserve it. Which I think is really cool. The saddest part of this story is that the men who found the first terracotta warriors and decided to sell them were farmers, and they had originally sold them for about $1.50 total. And to this day, those men still live in that area, and they're paid about $150 a month to go to a local museum and talk about how they found the terracotta warriors. But it's just insane. I mean, I think it's just this is something where you can't even put a price on it. Discovering the terracotta warriors on their own land, and their land was taken from them because it became this historical thing, and they put up museums, and now they're paid. I mean, I assume hopefully it's comparatively more, but $150 a month, and three of them, there were originally 7 people who were finding these terracotta warriors, and 3 of them have already passed away, which is part of why there's, our spooky element. There's a discussion of was it cursed to dig these up? And one of them had heart problems and didn't want to burden his family and took his own life, and he was in his 50s. A couple of others had died also in their 50s, not that old, just from poor healthcare and ironically, lack of funds, which is so, you're telling me they discovered the terracotta warriors and they didn't have the funds to take care of their health. That is just so, and I'm not into China bashing for no reason, because I think that it gets mixed up in a lot of...
Because she is a loyal supporter of the CCP. You can't hide it anymore, Sunny. I know when you were saying earlier that you were part Japanese, what you really meant to say was part Chinese, but you didn't want to look bad. So, listen, we know your secret, okay?
Well, no, no, it's just there's... I don't know. I think it's... Yeah. Nah, there's just a lot going on there. I absolutely think a lot of the stuff China is doing is horrendous. I also think a lot of the stuff the US did when we were at an economic stage similar to China was just as horrendous. So I'm, but at the same time, we're democratic, which separates us, blah, 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 blah. Lots of thoughts there. But long story short, I just, I can't forgive them for something like this. I mean, what am I even saying? There are so many worse things that they've done, but it's so sad to read about.
No, this is where she draws the line.
I know, right? But it's just so sad to read. It's your own citizen finds one of the most valuable cultural artifacts in the world, and they die from not having proper money for healthcare. What are you doing, dude? What? Just insane. So there's my China bashing for the day. Don't come for me, China. I know that you have the economic power of half the world.
I'm calling Chi right now. Okay, hi, Mr. Chi.
But yes, so that's my second unopened door.
Wow, that was all super really interesting. It was something you were saying earlier about how the archaeologists could ideally take their time to excavate all of this properly in order to preserve the paint on the warriors. Made me think of the Lascaux caves. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
But Lascaux is basically a complex of caves in France, and some teens found it back in the like 1940s or 1950s. I think it was 1940, and there was like a bunch of prehistoric paintings of like animals and handprints and shit inside. And France was like, "Oh my god, this is great," and they opened it to the public in the 40s. But then in the early 60s, they closed the cave because apparently too many people breathing in there was causing like the paint to fade, because it was like, like super old, like tens of thousands of years. And the carbon dioxide, like, it was obviously so delicate, and so this environment, and they were like, we had to close it. And so what they did instead, in order to kind of respect the art, kind of like a terracotta painting, the paint on the terracotta warriors, was they decided to respect this art by closing down the cave and creating an exact replica cave that people can now visit, and it's called Lascaux 2.
That's so
And
funny.
I think that is so cool.
So when are we going?
I listen. I'm just taking the itinerary. I'll let you know when I'm done. But I just think it's so cool that they did this, and respect archaeological finds. Try your best to preserve them as best as possible, even if that means that you can't charge people $17 an entrance fee to for them to see it. It's not worth the money. Respect history.
I totally agreed.
Yeah. So that was just another weird factoid.
That's like the opposite. The Lascaux caves are a double opened door.
I guess, yeah. You're right. Good point. But I'll let me talk about this pretty spooky, actually, and potentially paranormal unopened door that I have here. So, have you ever heard of the Egyptian Hall of Records?
Ooh. I think
No?
it came up a bit while I was looking for this episode, but not much.
Okay, so the Egyptian Hall of Records is actually a claim. It's not a place that we know exists, but it is an ancient library. And not, I said Asian library. An ancient library.
Oh, gotcha.
Claimed by this guy to lie under the Great Sphinx of Giza. Where the pyramids are. So there's no evidence to indicate that this Hall of Records ever existed. But this guy, his name is Edgar Cayce. He was kind of like into the paranormal. He was kind of like a clairvoyant person. He made predictions and prophecies, and he like prophetized at one point, some decades ago, that like the Hall of Records was going to be discovered in the 90s, and that obviously didn't happen. But like the initial reason for why he even believed this to exist was because he said that he had researched the area, but like the records on that are also flimsy. Like, the point is, the Hall of Records is a supposed ancient library under the pyramids of Giza that is supposed to contain like world-changing knowledge that would forever change our understanding of medicine and world history. And the fact that it hasn't been found tells people two things: either that it doesn't exist, which is the more pragmatic approach, or that the government is trying to hide it, which is obviously what is happening here.
Welcome to Conspiracy Theories, episode 8.
Yes, episode 8, girl, episode 87. That's all we do here now. So, yeah, basically believers claim that further investigation into this place, which would, finally like uncover the Hall of Records, because they think the investigations that have been done so far haven't been thorough enough. Believers believe that like further investigations have been blocked by the Egyptian government because the investigators were apparently getting too close now, and so they decided to block any further research into this, because you had archaeologists that had actually like gone there, that were allowed to research a lot of the ground and part underground of the pyramids to find this place, which to me tells me like the government clearly isn't trying to block anything if they let them go. It's more that it's probably related to like the Lascaux cave, right? It's probably that like these things are so delicate and old that you can't just have people running around whenever they want. Like,
yeah.
You can only have so many people doing so many things so many times, because I don't know, I'm sure these places, like I said, very delicate. And so that's probably what's happening here. But the other side of my brain says aliens, the Egyptian government, and a cover-up. So,
I mean, they, how did humans make the pyramids? Maybe,
right.
Imagine if they were like
Listen.
alien communication records. That would... They're like, hey, so we
Oh
actually
my
didn't make
god.
the pyramids. Y'all were right.
What if there were like the same way you like archive a WhatsApp chat? Like there was like hieroglyphs under the pyramids that were like put in a different place than the other ones, so like you can't find them unless you look for them, and all of those say like, yeah, it was the aliens. So okay, so I'm gonna talk about a little bit about the psychic readings of this guy Edgar Case.
Mm.
So basically, this guy is an American psychic. So, like I said, he prophesied that the Hall of Records would be discovered and opened between 96 and 98. And he, which, takes a little bit away from his credibility, connected this to the second coming of Christ. Okay, well, let's continue. So, among this guy's purported prophecies was also that an Atlantean flying vehicle is buried under the Sphinx and was used to build the Great Pyramid. So it wasn't actually aliens, according to him, which blows my mind. It was actually the Atlanteans, our neighbors. And there are also travel underground tunnels to habitable areas of inner Earth. So basically, this guy really said Atlantis and Jules Verne
Oh my god.
under the pyramids,
Damn.
which
He's coming for J.K. Rowling's crown of combining mythologies right now.
no one can fight that crazy. But yes, but I mean, yeah, there's other architectural wonders that were also mentioned in his prophecies, including the Mayan temples and the holy mountains of Tibet. But this was like his big thing that he blew up for. And this guy made many references in his prophecies to the hall's location under the Sphinx, which is very important because, given the lack of alternative knowledge, when archaeologists heard about the Hall of Records and they decided to go look for it, they unfortunately, but I guess fortunately, had to rely on what this guy said, which this guy sounds so crazy, but since he happens to be the only one who has said he thinks he knows where the library is,
That's
this
so
is all
funny.
the poor archaeologists had to go off of. And so he said that it lies between or along the entrance from the Sphinx to the temple or the pyramid, in a pyramid, of course, of its own, and for the preservation of the data that has yet to be found from the chambers of the way between the Sphinx and the Pyramid of Records. So he basically gave them a more specific location than just, oh, go look at the pyramids, but it still wasn't great. However, he did mention that apparently the library would exist within a pyramid of its own, which actually is super interesting because another factoid, just off my memory, is that I've read that there have been some weird, like, bird's eye view Earth scans made of the pyramid that apparently show that there are other how do you say that? Pyramidical? There's a word for it. Pyramid-shaped figures within the pyramid, and so basically people are thinking that there are other pyramid structures within the pyramids.
Oh,
And
interesting.
this actually could connect to that, right? Like if that is the case, why couldn't one of those pyramids inside the pyramid be the ancient hall? So yeah, super interesting stuff. The last kind of tidbit about this is that there have been seismic tests of the underground of the pyramids done to see if they can find anything. And the series of expeditions took place from 91 to 93, and they were led by like actual credible Egyptologists, which is great. And their findings indicated that the pattern of erosion on the Sphinx suggests that it was carved at the end of the last ice age when heavy rains fell in the eastern Sahara. In other words, 12,000 years ago,
That's
not
insane.
4,000 years ago as it is widely believed. So,
Whoa.
right? So, that doesn't necessarily connect to the. Well, here, let me just finish. So, the research also suggested that there may be unexplored tunnels and cavities in the bedrock beneath the Sphinx, including a large rectangular chamber 25 feet beneath the monument's front paws. So basically, people think, oh, okay, so if it's not a pyramid within a pyramid, then it would be this large rectangular 20 feet, 20 square feet chamber that they found because of the seismological test. That would be where the library is. So, like, yeah, it connects, but frankly, to me, it was far more interesting that they determined that the pyramids were actually built 8,000 years earlier than we thought they were. Just fucking insane, because what other repercussions does that have for our knowledge of the pyramids? You know, like, hello.
That is
Um,
insane.
so that's what I got.
Well, that's pretty insane. I mean, it's just so cool. All these ancient cultures, you know? The US could never.
It's funny. I saw a post on Reddit once about Europeans talking about Americans visiting their countries, and there was like this French guy that said that when Americans would visit his country, they would always talk about, oh my God, this is so old and this place has so much history, and like he never really thought of it. But I guess, he realized that when you're an American, you live in a country where, like, like post indigenous culture, the country's only a couple centuries old, and so like, yeah, I guess we really don't have that much. And
Exactly,
I thought it
exactly.
was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes you think more about, like, yeah, native culture also is pretty ancient, so. Wish we were taught
Right,
more
right.
about that. But,
Yeah.
yeah, on that note, pretty sick episode. I would love to talk more about this stuff.
Yeah, we didn't even cover, I don't think I even covered half of the doors that I had researched because we went in so many tangents, but this was fun.
Oh, yeah, also,
Um,
big Avatar
yeah.
energy with the, like, lost library. Avatar The Last Airbender, like the
Oh,
library
yeah,
that comes
yeah,
out of the
yeah, yeah,
ground.
yeah, yeah.
I would not be surprised if it were inspired by the same thing.
Well, I mean, this knowledge has existed for a couple decades, or at least the claim. So, yeah. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. We hope you like this episode. We will see you next week with episode 88. And remember that you can listen to us on all podcast listening platforms. Something I said I wouldn't say anymore, but there, it just slipped. Also, if you have any future episode ideas for us that you'd like us to cover, do let us know by DMing us at Talk Scary on Instagram and Twitter, and at Scary Talk on Facebook. Goodbye. What if I just like didn't ask you for anything? Like, what if I just said goodbye? Like, I didn't ask Sunny anything else. That'd be
Um,
kind of rude.
no, love that.
um, no, what's up? What else you got?
Nothing. Thanks y'all so much.
Yeah, the Mothman is real. Yeah, I got nothing else. Good night,
Good
y'all.
night.
Love you. Bye.